Hi everyone, my name is Carrie O'Brien and I am the Digital Marketing Specialist here at the DigiVac company. Today's presentation will be on the Model 215V gauge, and it is a digital vacuum controller with three measurement units that you can use to monitor your vacuum system. On the agenda for today is an overview of the gauge and why we first developed it. I'll offer some specifications of the gauge as well as some features and benefits. I'll give an overview of the set points and relays, and I'll offer you some answers to frequently asked questions that we've received from customers over the years. If there's anything on the agenda that you don't see that will be addressed but you'd like me to speak about, please let me know. Okay, with no suggestions, I will move forward. So why the 215V was first created? We first manufactured the gauge in 2011 because it was the next step in the evolution of the Model 200 series gauge we have, which the Model 200 is the gauge just below the Model 215V, and it has one measurement unit of Torr, whereas the 215V, as I will address later in the presentation, has more measurement units. It was also designed to include RS-232, analog out, and optional Ethernet, which allowed for additional application of the gauge. And we also wanted CE approval, and while the 215V comes with a 531 sensor standard, if you need CE approval, the gauge is marked with CE if you switch out the 531 sensor for 536. And it has easy-to-use relay set points, so you can determine your vacuum system based off of set points that you want. And in the image I just brought up, you can see the outputs on the back of the gauge, where there's the sensor RS-232, analog out, the volts, and the set points. Right in the upper right-hand corner, you can see set point 1 and set point 2. And the 215V has a number of integrated features that allow you for precision and accuracy, some of which are displayed on the within the outputs on the back of the gauge. So, moving further, Model 215V is used within a couple of different industries and for a couple of different applications. So, industry-wise, the gauge can be used within cryogenics, manufacturing, and laboratory, and the applications of the gauge include the ability to control pressure through relay usage, to offer OEM vacuum installations, and to alarm pressure levels. You can have the set points set to tell you if the vacuum pressure goes above or below that set point. And you can use the Model 215V to monitor and control the pressures within the vacuum system when operating between the range of 0.001 torr and 760 torr. So the advantages to this gauge include the integrated fail-safe set points, which mean that in the case of a system failure, there would be no harm to the gauge, as well as the 3 measurement units, which I previously mentioned, that are Torr, mbar, and KPA. You can easily switch between these measurement units when needed, and unlike the Model 200, it offers a wider range of vacuum monitoring because it has more measurement units. You can also measure across 6 decades of pressure, which is a wide range of measurement that allows for a number of different applications. And the Model 215V, like all of our gauges, comes calibrated under actual vacuum. So the 215V will come to you when calibrated against the NIST traceable standard, and it leaves you knowing that there's accuracy from day one, and it was measured against something known across the industry as reliable. So the accuracies of the 215V, there's a couple of different ranges, and from 0.5 microns to 1 micron, the accuracy is plus or minus 0.5 microns. And from 1 to 10 microns, there's plus or minus 1 micron of accuracy. The accuracy is 10% from 10 to 2,000 microns, and from 2 torr to 6 torr, the accuracy is 1 torr. We offer these different ranges so you know where the gauge will be, what level the gauge will be accurate between different stages of your vacuum system. And to better visualize how the accuracy would work, you can see that in the image I just brought up, all of the ranges are aligned between 0 and 10 torr, and then from 10 to 160 torr, they sort of separate out and go in their own directions of accuracy, which is where the variation comes into play. And then after 160, the accuracies come back together to align with accuracy across the board. So a few additional specifications of the gauge are that it has a vacuum interface of 1/8 inch MNPT or KFNW. It has a analog output of 0 to 5 VDC. The power is 100 to 240 VAC or 50 to 60 hertz CE rated. And it has controls of 7 amp, 250 volt, and 2 Type-C contacts. Is there anything on the specification table that you'd like me to address further or provide more information on if I didn't state it? Okay, moving forward. So Tom Bassi, one of our engineers, was asked who his favorite customer was for the 215V, and he said that he likes manufacturers who use the 215V in 2 different ways. He likes the customers who use the gauge as an OEM gauge because it's easy to integrate and it easily mounts within their existing vacuum system. And he also likes the customers who use it as a reference standard on a manufacturing line or in a manufacturing process. So the image is just a sample image of where you might an environment in which you might find the 215V used. And in addition to hearing Tom Bassi's favorite customer, I wanted to offer 2 customer examples for you. So the first customer example is another manufacturing customer, and this customer uses the 215V for refrigeration manufacturing, and they use it on a product line to ensure that to measure vacuum pressure and the alarms. And they use it to verify that their new refrigeration system, I apologize, is dry and leak-free. So the image I just brought up is again a sample image of a unit that they might use, that they might be measuring the vacuum pressure in to see if it's dry and leak-free. And the second customer example I have for you is an OEM customer, and this OEM customer uses the Model 215V as a part of their vacuum system, so they don't use the gauge just for the gauge. They place it within their unit to measure the to measure their system for whatever it's measuring against, and they use the set points to easily communicate a specific pressure level to their system. So the image is a unit of theirs, and you can see plumbed within their system is the Model 215V, and it's measuring the vacuum for the process in which they're running. So I've mentioned set points a few times, and I'd like to address them a little bit further. There are 3 types of set point connections. There's the common, which is the common line of a switch. There's the NC, which is the normally closed, and this means that above the set point value, there is a current path between the common and the normally closed terminal. And there's also the NO, which is the normally open, and this means that above the set point level, there is no current path between the common and the normally open connection. So there's also relays that the 215V uses, and those relays are activated when the vacuum level falls below the set points, and they're not activated when the pressure is above the set point. And the fail-safe relay is inactive when in the result of a power outage, which is what allows the no harm feature of the set points and relays. So I've brought up two images for you to visualize how the relays and set points work. You can see that in the image to the left, in which there's a little switch moving back and forth, when the common line is set to normally closed, it says that this relay is off, and when you switch when the common is to normally open, you can see that the relay is turned on. This demonstrates the way in which the relays and set points work. Additionally, the image to the right offers another visual of it, in which you can see that the common is set to normally closed, and it says underneath that the light turns on when the relay turns on. So you can see how the set points and relays are connected. When one turns on, the other turns on, and when one turns off, the other turns off. And you can learn more about the relay pin configurations and relay wiring at the links on the bottom of the presentation, and I will send everybody a copy of the presentation at the end of the webinar and to the email addresses provided, unless another one is requested, in which you can place that in the chat box on the conference sign-in. So, to go into set points displayed in a graphical format, which is just another way of visualizing the set points and relays, you can see that the pressure starts at 760 torr, and then the vacuum expert turns their pump on, and you can see that the pressure is dropping from 760 torr down, and set point 1 is set to 1 torr. So when the pressure reaches just below 1 torr, the set point 1 is turned on, and it remains on. But set point 2 is set at 0.5 torr, and at that point, when the pressure goes below 0.5 torr, set point 2 is turned on. So below 0.5 torr, both set point 1 and set point 2 are turned on. Then the vacuum expert turns the pump off, and the pressure begins to rise again. When the pressure rises above 0.5 torr, set point 2 turns off, but set point 1 remains on. Then, as the pressure continues to rise, when it gets above 1 torr, set point 1 is turned off, and then no set points are turned on, and the vacuum pressure could continue to rise until the pump is turned on again. So there's customer options that can be included on the order of the 215V, but before I go into that, I want to provide you with the standard features that come with the gauge, and that's 2C, 5V, 5T, and DS DigiVac software, which is our DigiVac React, as well as our RS-232. And the options that can be included in an order are Ethernet with DigiVac React, which, differing from DigiVac software, DigiVac React is a browser-based software that allows for more features and more uses of the gauge on a computer or PC. There's also the option of a NIST calibration, which we highly recommend because this daily because it allows the gauge to continue running accurately and reliably for a longer period of time. There's also the option of a 536 sensor, as I've stated before, if you're looking for CE compliance, and a 536 KF25 sensor to plumb into a KF25 fitting. So the image I just brought up is our DigiVac React software, which is the browser-based software, and you can see that it allows you to view a graph of your vacuum system on your computer screen. It also allows for other features such as controls and terminal. And the second image I brought up is a KF25 fitting. It's actually a 531 sensor placed within a KF25 fitting. And again, I brought up the back of the gauges, the back of the gauge, I apologize, which shows the sensor output, the RS-232, the volts and the set points. And the last image I brought up is the gauge with the KF25 fitting so you could see how it would be plugged into the gauge in the sensor connector. And items included in the standard order that aren't the added features, the actual physical items, are the vacuum gauge controller itself, as well as the sensor cable connector, an AC adapter that runs the volts and hertz within a line cord adapter. There's the panel mount hardware, the rubber feet to be used for benchtop surfaces, the terminal plugs for relays and analog out, and everything is pre-tested under actual vacuum against the NIST standard. That's not a tangible feature, but you would get the assurance that the gauge was tested under NIST traceable standard. So a visualization of everything that is included in the order that you would get in the box is the gauge itself, the AC adapter, the sensor which is plumbed into the sensor connector, the sensor cable, the panel mount hardware, the rubber feet for benchtop surfaces, that's if you're not going to mount it in a wall, and the terminal plugs for the relay out or analog, or the relays or analog out. And that's just to protect the actual plug-in area from dust or other harmful contaminants if they're not being used. So the quick start of the gauge, which you would also get in the box upon delivery, is to plug the gauge into your power to see if it lights on and if it turns on and lights up. And then you would also plumb the sensor into your vacuum system, and you would connect the sensor and connect the sensor to the unit and make sure that it's reading vacuum. And the last thing you would do is to verify that the readings you're getting are accurate, are making sense, and are accurate. So an example would be if you plug the gauge into a system that's reading to atmosphere at sea level, having a reading between 600 and 760 Torr would be normal. And are there any questions about that, by the way? No. Okay. So moving on, I'd like to address some frequently asked questions that customers have thrown our way in the past. So we've gotten the question, if I need to measure vacuum to maintain vacuum pressures, can I use the 215V? And the answer there is yes, because the vacuum gauge the 215V is a vacuum gauge and controller, so it can help maintain pressures as well as just read pressures. And another question we've gotten is, can I use it to turn a pump on and off? The answer there is no, because while there are relays that work on the on-off system, the relay contacts are only good for 7 amps and are more commonly used to drive valves and larger pump relays or lights. But some of our customers do this anyway. We're highly against it, and we don't suggest you doing it. But as I said, some of our customers have done it in the past. And then everything in my lab, it needs to be CE compliant, but the 215V isn't. Can I have a customized gauge that can be CE compliant? And the answer there is there's no need for customization, because upon ordering you would just state that you would like a 536 sensor to be calibrated with the gauge as opposed to a 531. And having it calibrated would allow for accurate readouts and reliability. If you just purchased the gauge and a 536 sensor separately, it wouldn't be calibrated with the gauge, and the readings might not be accurate. So, can I order the 215V controller that reads in PSI? The answer there is that we can't allow for that, because the gauge is only set to read in Torr, mbar, and kPa, so we can't set it to read with PSI. But we do have another gauge, the Bullseye Precision Gauge Piezo, which you might consider ordering if you need a gauge to read in PSI. And then, how accurate is the 215V at 25 Torr? It's not very accurate at that level. If you need accuracy at 25 Torr, you would consider our piezo Torr manometer as an alternative. And can I send my gauge in for repair if needed? The answer there is yes. We can repair your gauge for a starting price of $155. If the gauge requires more work than the $155 covers, we would contact you and let you know what's going on with the gauge, and we would work from there on repairing the unit. So a summary of everything that I've discussed is that the 215V is a high-performance vacuum controller with 3 measurement units, which is an added benefit to as opposed to the Model 200, which only has 1 measurement unit. It's a vacuum controller with relays and set points to better monitor your vacuum system pressures. I apologize. It's also versatile with a number of computer or web-based transmitting options. That would be the DigiVac plot, the DigiVac software, which would be DigiVac plot, or the DigiVac React software. And it also integrates easily into multiple vacuum systems, which allows it to be used in multiple applications and across a few industries. It's also CE compliant with a 536 sensor, and the software I just brought up, the image I just brought up is a screenshot of the DigiVac React software, and as opposed to the image I had previously brought up, this image shows the terminal display of the vacuum system monitoring, which would allow you to change the units, change your set points from your computer screen, and it would communicate instantly to the gauge. I've also brought up an image of the controller with a 531 sensor, a regular 531 sensor without a KS fitting. And at this point, I'd be open to questions to see if anybody has anything anything on their mind that I didn't cover, or if they'd like additional information along with the presentation at the end. So I am open for questions. You can either speak out loud, or you can use the chat box within GoToMeetings. So there are no questions. Thank you for taking part in this presentation. As I said, I will send you a copy of the PowerPoint at the end.